And we should be live any moment. And there we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. Welcome, my fellow Barnon warriors and free thinkers. My name is Chris, and of course, this is my channel, Barnon 11970. Always, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say, and I hope you will with an open mind, because there is always a purpose for my videos, and that's to hopefully get you to think about things maybe in a different perspective, to see things from another point of view, and to get a dialogue going where we ask questions, and that is something I thoroughly believe in. So I already see people starting to come in, so I'm glad you guys can hear me. Gauds, Tim, and all the others, thank you for coming on. It's 9:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 27th of March, 2017, and I want to share a story about something I saw today and why we really need to fix this, or at least be aware of it, before this becomes a major problem. Now, for those of you who follow my channel know I also have another channel. It's called We Love Comics. It's a comic channel. I've been collecting comics off and on since I was a little kid. It's something that I do that helps me kind of, you know, take some of the seriousness out of life and actually just enjoy some things of my past. So, I mean, that's not a surprise or a shocker to anybody that follows my channel. Now, there was a show recently that just came out on Netflix called Iron Fist. And there was an article today I read, and I'm not even going to post the link to the description of it because I'm not going to promote this social justice warriors agenda. Now, one of the biggest things I've been seeing lately is people saying they're whitewashing the character. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Iron Fist, he was a white character who ended up getting stranded and taught the ways of monks and the ways of the Iron Fist. So they, first of all, right there, they haven't changed the character at all. So the people that are saying things about whitewashing just does not make sense there. But that's not the article I want to talk about, because I just think that's actually silly, and that's basically people just trying to create more of an agenda and really don't know what's going on just because they like to not think for themselves, but just follow along to the tribe mentality, which is something a lot of people hear and what I strive against. But the article was talking about there is a secondary character in the TV show. I don't know her name, but it was the typical social justice warrior thing where they show these female characters that can basically just beat the living daylights out of every man, no matter how trained they are, no matter how much bigger they are. And it's going to teach the wrong message to things. But she played a great part. She was definitely a great side character. And the article that I read was all about saying how she should have been the Iron Fist. Now, from a woman's point of view, I can understand, women need role models, and that's great. There are plenty of female role models out there, but believe it or not, boys and men do need role models as well. And if you notice what's been happening the past few years, and I actually started talking about this as early as 2015, where they were really starting to have this agenda of this, not only, see, it's okay to have strong women, but not at the expense of weakening men. And you notice this, and more and more people are starting to notice this, and I'm going to show the consequences of this. Because if you look at the typical movies these days, and I even look at some of the movies in the past, where they make men, especially the white men, they tend to make them either very feminine, very dumb, or very cowardly. And you even see that on the episodes of Walking Dead. The recent episode of Walking Dead, you have one of the characters who is supposed to be in charge of one of the towns, who at one point sees a zombie and has a woman have to kill the zombie for him because he was too scared to do it. So this is teaching a very dangerous message, and I'm going to explain. Because first of all, there was another character in The Walking Dead. His name is Jesus, of all characters' names, and we find out last week that he's gay. Now, is there anything wrong with the gay lifestyle? No. It's not something that I partake in, and if other people want to, that's up to them. It's not my decision to decide what other people do. As long as it doesn't infringe on my rights, people are able to do what they so choose. But to me, it just has nothing to do with the story. And then you think about some of the characters. Some of the main characters are coming across gay and very weak, which if you think about an apocalypse situation, it's kind of hard to propagate the species if people are dating the same sex. So, I mean, that's just my opinion on that. And, if that's something that you can have your own opinion on, because that's basically what it is. But I want you to think about this, especially from a guy's point of view. And me being a guy, I can only talk from a guy's perspective. But you have to see things, and that's why you see the little comment on the page here. The image you're seeing says you have to be careful what you do because the shoe may be on the other foot someday. Now, you see all of these characters. I mean, you have Wolverine. The new Wolverine is now X-23. You have all these other characters that are turning into females. And from a woman's point of view, you see that's great. I mean, the Ghostbusters are now all female. You have all of these strong female characters, and that's great. But just imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and Wonder Woman, Elektra, Harley Quinn, Jean Grey, Batgirl, Supergirl, Storm, Kitty Pryde, they were all now being portrayed by men. Or articles all over the place for saying, well, what if Storm was played by a guy? How many people on the feminist side and female side would have a problem with that? And they absolutely would, because those are female characters and they should stay true to their character. So for me, when I say things like Iron Fist should be a man, or any characters that were portrayed as men should stay as men, and I don't want to see them as female characters, you can always make another character become a hero. Like for me, one of my favorite all-time female characters was Ripley from the Alien franchise. Now, that was not having to steal from somebody else's identity. She had her own identity, and I liked the fact of how strong she was. So this is not one of those, I'm not one of those MGTOW, men going their own way kind of people. I think that's just silly because that's on the other end of the spectrum. I mean, if you're going to bash women, you're not helping unite when there's division. And this is what this is all about. But it's talking about common sense. But I believe in if, for example, there is a male character and that's how they were created, well, they should stay that way just as much on the other end of the coin. That if there's a female character, she should stay female. To me, it makes no sense other than to prove an agenda. Now, here's the thing you have to be careful. If you look at commercials these days and TV shows and movies, they're showing women that they can do things that normally they cannot. Now, that's not meant to be insulting, because I have a lot of respect for women. I mean, the most positive person in my entire life was my mother. So I have a lot of respect for women. But my mother is not all of a sudden going to be a kung fu expert and beat up some UFC champion. It's not realistic. And if you see this, what that's going to do is it's going to teach girls, and you see this a lot lately. There's a new arrogance coming along where the women growing up are becoming to the point where they think, oh, well, now I can do anything, so I'm going to cause physical harm to people, or I'm going to give attitudes knowing that nothing's going to come back to me. And you see the men these days are growing up to be afraid of everything. Like they should apologize for what everybody else has done. And if we continue to go down this path, it is going to screw up our youth, and it's going to get worse. And it all comes down to the fact of an agenda. If you know anything about the art of war, it is all about having few be able to take care of the many by getting them to fight amongst themselves. It's called divide and conquer. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. And one of the biggest things that they can do, and they are doing right now, is men and women fighting amongst each other. And that's why you could clearly see if you pay attention. Look at men in recent movies in the past 5 years, maybe even the past 10 years. Look at the average man, especially the average white man in a show. They tend to end up being gay. They tend to be either scared or cowards. And you see all these women. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with having a strong woman. But, like, for example, I never watched the new Ghostbusters. I am not going to watch it because it's not something that I believe in. Now, one of the things I saw in one of the commercials for it was they're supposedly having these backpacks, which are supposed to be very heavy. The proton packs. These things are supposed to weigh a good 50 pounds, and yet they're doing backflips in the air, shooting their guns, and just punching every ghost like there's no tomorrow. Now, that's sending a wrong message, because just imagine if some girl decides, well, I'm going to emulate what I see on TV, because we are all influenced by what we watch. It's happened to all of our generations that grew up with the television. Now, just imagine if some little 9-year-old girl weighs, let's say, 86 pounds, 90 pounds, and goes up against a boy who's 2 times her size and says, well, according to TV shows and according to movies and according to commercials, I have the power to stand up to anybody. And that one particular boy decides enough is enough, and she tries to throw in the first punch. What do you think's going to happen? Now, that doesn't mean there aren't powerful women out there. And again, I'm seeing this from both sides of the coin. But let's keep it real. I mean, I have a guy, so I can only see the majority of a guy's perspective. But I am not willing to close my eyes and not see the other side as well. So I understand that women should have strong female characters. But if it becomes so unrealistic, it sends a very bad message. And you see on especially the extreme feminists, and I'm saying extreme feminists because there's no one group that's everybody's categorized as, and that's a problem we have to fix, because it's not all women and it's not all men. It's the people that are running the movies, that are writing the articles, that are allowing these things to go through, that are writing these commercials, allowing them to air, the ones that are reviewing them, saying they're okay. It's all about sending a message to make men softer so they cannot defend themselves, and make the women unrealistically strong to the point where they could never live up to their counterparts on the television. Because if you looked at realistically the Ghostbusters, like the original male characters, when they first saw a ghost, they were scared of it. They actually ran away in fear. And yet, the new version, they see a ghost like it's just their next door neighbor coming out to go get the laundry off the wire in the back. Like it's no big deal. Like, oh, it's a ghost. Let me keep eating my potato chips. That's just not how it is in real life. Now, are there a few women that are like that? Sure. Just like there are plenty of men like myself. I'm sure if I was in a haunted house and I saw a real live ghost, I probably wouldn't be sitting there eating a thing of potato chips. I'd probably want to run away too. It's the whole fight or flight. And King James, I gotta call you out on this one, because this is what I'm talking about the divide and conquer. King James, you wrote a comment that says it's the Jews, they hate us. Now this is where there's a problem. Not every single person that is Jewish is doing this to us. Just like not everybody in Black Lives Matter is going to want to kill us. Not every black person wants to kill us. Not every white person is a KKK member. So to categorize a whole community, a whole section of the world, and say it is them is unrealistic and is what causes the problem. Are there Jewish people that cause problems? Just as much as people of every race, every creed, every color, every religion. But you can't say every single one of them does it. And that is the problem that we keep doing. And King James, if you want to say that, that's fine. That's your right. If you want to be that naive and ignorant, saying they own Hollywood, bro. Okay, so you're saying every Jewish person on the planet owns Hollywood? Is that what you're saying? Because that's not the case. And this is where I need to call people out, and people need to start thinking a little bit deeper. There's a saying that says, a few bad apples spoil the tree. You don't need to have every single apple ruin the tree. And Corey says he's a KKK member. Well, congratulations if that's the case. Hey, if that's what you want to believe in, that's fine, even though I know you're totally sarcastic about it. But my point is, what are we teaching our little girls? And what are we teaching our little boys? They're basically, if you have in this generation where the moms and pops, if they're still together, they all have to go out and work. So you're having the school system and you're having the television raise us. I was the generation that was basically brought up by the television, where my parents got divorced. My mother couldn't afford a babysitter. I was old enough to watch my younger sister, and we basically had the TV entertain us because it kept us quiet, kept us out of trouble. So we emulate what we see. And it's teaching the boys to grow up to become very soft. And it's teaching the women that they can do anything they want. And that is abuse of the system, because you see how many people on the extremes of either side are causing problems, and they will not listen to the other side. When you are at the point in life where you have an agenda and you cannot even be willing to listen to the other side, then you have to question where you're going. So my thing is, it's okay to have a point of view. It's okay to have a belief system. But if you are so unwilling to even hear another side or even consider that there is an alternative view to your own viewpoint, then you have to question what it is and what got you in that way to where you are not willing to listen. And that is why I talk about things like the divide and conquer. It's all about getting people to fight amongst themselves so we never unite to realize what is really going on. And that's why I even tell people about Donald Trump or what would have been Hillary Clinton, but we can only go by what the president we have now. They don't talk about the Federal Reserve. They don't talk about the fact that we're about to hit 20 trillion in debt. They don't talk about the fact that the economy is losing its value, that the currency is losing its value on a daily basis. They want us fighting over things like what bathrooms should our child be able to go into? And these whole feminist movements where they are so politically angry that they are not willing to listen. Any stance that you have, if you are not willing to listen to the other side and at least acknowledge that there are two sides to a coin, then there is something wrong and there is an agenda being held. Because if you listen to my channel, I'm always questioning things. And that is why, even if there's somebody I agree with, I am not afraid to question their motives. Because if you do not think on a deeper level, that is how the few can control the many. And they're doing this in all different directions. Here's the thing about me. I try not to hate anybody because it's just the wrong way to live. But the people that I don't get along with, it has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It has nothing to do with who they choose to sleep with. It has nothing to do with the religion they practice. It has to do with the fact of whether they are good people or bad people. DC, you're saying that's why Trump is in bed with the Russians. If you want to follow the political agenda that they ram down your throat, you're more than welcome to be deceived. See, there's an old saying that says, tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. So there's a reason why they've been hammering Russia, Russia, Russia every single day, because they're hoping that people hear it long enough, it becomes part of their vocabulary, and they actually believe it. So if you really believe that's the case, that he's in bed with the Russians, well, better to be in bed with the Russians than to try and start a nuclear war with the Russians. So I guess if you have to have one of two choices, I'd rather him be in bed with them so we don't nuke each other and all die like Hillary Clinton had. Because like even Trump has said, is it so bad we want to be friends with them? Because in the 80s, weren't we friends with Russia again? And you go back into history. Are we friends with England? Well, didn't we have a revolutionary war against them because they owned us as a colony? What about Germany and Italy? What about Japan, who attacked us? We seem to be friends with them. So why is it's okay to be friends with England? It's okay to be friends with Germany. It's okay to be friends with with Italy. It's okay to be friends with Japan. But for some reason, it's not okay to be friends with Russia. Can anyone explain the logic behind that? What has Russia done to us that we haven't already done to most people in this world? And for some reason, people only can think about recent events instead of checking into history. So why is it the media has no problem with that at all? that we can be friends with Japan, who attacked and murdered thousands of people in Pearl Harbor. And yet Russia, who has never in our history ever attacked us, if you even say you talk to somebody who's Russian, you are all of a sudden chastised. Can anyone see the logic behind this, or is there something deeper? Okay, DC, you're obviously somebody that's on the left-hand side and you're trying to create a political agenda. So I'm going to answer what I think is just the most ridiculous comment. You're saying, aren't you a little bit curious about what's in Donald Trump's tax returns? I'm just as much interested in Trump's tax returns as I am with yours. What does his tax returns have to do with what he can do as president of the United States? Can you please explain to me the relevance of his tax returns, other than creating your leftist agenda? Can you tell me what that's going to do? When you had, for example, they talk about the fact of the connection with Russia, right? Supposedly Trump with Russia. Why is the media not talking about the fact that Hillary Clinton sold, what, 0.75% of our uranium to the Russians? You do understand that uranium is part of the materials needed to make nuclear devices, right? So why is nobody up in with their hands in the air saying, why did Hillary Clinton allow parts to a nuclear weapon that could be used to create a nuclear weapon sold to the Russians? Why does nobody have a problem with that? And see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what this whole video starts about. It's talking about only one side and not seeing the other side. So DC, obviously you're here to create an leftist agenda because you wouldn't keep continually saying these most ridiculous things without seeing both sides. So I really don't care about his taxes. But they also, by the way, which they took his 2 pages of taxes and found that he paid over $35 million in taxes. So it's just ridiculous. And again, it's more divide and conquer. So DC, if you want to be part of the problem, then continue your one-sided agenda and don't see things from all sides, and then wonder why you only see the head of a coin, thinking that the tail does not exist. So my thing is, if we do not communicate with each other and we do not see things on all sides, we are going to continue to fight. Okay, so DC, we're going to get rid of you because obviously you're here for the wrong reasons and you cannot communicate correctly. So the beautiful thing on my dictatorship of a channel is I can get rid of people that are problems. And Corey says something that's very true. Both sides suck. And I thoroughly agree with that. They do. Why? Because they have a failure to communicate with each other. Both sides are so stubborn they think that they could not, that the other side either doesn't exist or does not have a right. And if we continue down this arrogant road, look at what we are teaching our children. Because here's the thing. I'm 46 years old. How much longer am I going to be living in this world? If I'm lucky, another 46 years? The children are the ones that are going to suffer because we choose to just ignore what's important. And here's the thing. I don't have any children, so this is not going to affect anybody from my perspective other than me. But there are plenty of people that I'm sure that are listening to this right now that have little children who are going to have to grow up in this mess we choose to ignore. And if we cannot see that when there is a coin, there are 2 sides. And just because you listen to one side does not mean the other side doesn't exist. And if you're not willing to listen and communicate, then you are part of the problem and you are not going to be doing anything to the next generation that will be beneficial. They are passing the buck and they are dividing us left and right. Some people you just cannot communicate with. I can tell the ones that are here for the wrong reasons. Like Corey and everything, he kids around and everything because that's just what he likes to do. But I know when it comes down to being serious, he does have a serious side. But there are some people that have an obvious agenda that no matter what you try and say, they just pretend like you didn't say anything. So this whole movement of trying to turn male characters into female characters, you might just think, well, that's just a TV show. No, when children watch shows, they emulate what they see. That's why they always say, do as I say, not as I do. But we know plenty of people grew up learning things that they saw. I mean, you could just look at the 80s when Madonna was popular. and all the outfits that she wore when she did the movie Desperately Seeking Susan. How many girls grew up dressing the same way that she did? How many girls now are dressing like Lady Gaga? All right, so let's see what King James' brilliant thing he's saying right now. So it says, who is pushing the agenda? Do you know, sir? Who do you think is doing all of that? I think it's more of just divide than tear down the fabric of our nation. Well, if I knew who was pushing the agenda, I would call them out. But if you know anything about what's going on, it goes deeper than TV shows. It goes deeper than corporations. It goes deeper than the political system. It all comes down to he who has the gold makes the golden rule. In other words, who has the currency that can be able to bribe people to do things or not do things, they're what really is in control. So it's all about the extremely wealthy wanting it a certain way, and that's why you see there are no hobos and homeless people in a political agenda. There is no person that is working in Hollywood that's a superstar that is begging for coins on the street. There is nobody that's working for the media that has to wonder where their next paycheck is going to be so they can pay their electric bill. They're all taken care of extremely well. And that is why they are willing to look the other way. So if anybody is willing to take any form of a bribe just to look the other way and kick the can down the road, eventually that road comes to a dead end. So if you're willing to sell your soul to create some currency and some small amount of currency, and you are willing to hurt other fellow human beings, eventually that there comes a day where you have to cash that check in more ways than one. So people can joke all they want. People can turn this into something, oh, it's no big deal. Well, then if that's the case, why are things getting worse than better? Why are people getting sicker? Why are people more overweight? Why are more and more children being born with birth defects? If we supposedly have all this medicine and all these cures to help people, which, by the way, they've been doing how many years of telethons, stealing millions and millions of dollars from people, and what's been cured? Wonder where all that money's going. So we can kid around this all you want. You could say, ridiculous things that might even seem cool on the internet. Congratulations on the achievement. But it's your children that are going to suffer. So I don't know what to say other than if you're not willing to listen to both sides. And that's why I can say that Hillary Clinton would have been a tyrant. But Donald Trump, even if he was 100% genuine, which I sincerely doubt, he cannot change a corrupt system. Because as you can see, all you need to do, like they did with this recent healthcare bill, is have every single person on the opposite side say, nope, we're not going to listen. We're not going to work with you. We're not going to speak to you. You can have the political system that works in the media say all these things about, oh, how Trump is supposedly in touch with Russia because he might have sold a house to him back in 2005, and yet Hillary Clinton gets a free pass by helping to sell 2/3 of our plutonium to Russia. No, it's either both ways or no ways. Otherwise, you see an agenda. And if you're not smart enough to get that, well, I seriously doubt, especially that people that come to channels like mine, even the trolls, they're not stupid. They may get paid to pretend to be, but they're not stupid. And if you cannot see the writing on the wall in the bigger picture, and all this stuff just continues to happen, then, you're going to get what you deserve. And my thing is, why would you want that for your future or your family's future if you supposedly love them and care for them? Because like I said, I'm just with my wife. I will always live comfortably enough to survive. I've always been that way. I always will be that way. So I could literally shut this channel off tomorrow and never have to look back and not worry about a damn thing. But I do it because I think about more than myself. I worry about other people's children. I worry about other people's future. Because the thing is, if we save this world, guess what? We're all saved. So there is a selfish motive in there. I just don't understand some of the mentality of some people. I mean, congratulations on anybody that goes on the internet and leaves a stupid comment. I mean, that's not really much of a challenge to be hidden behind a computer and just say something stupid, whether you're just doing it for sheer entertainment or you're doing it because somebody paid you to do it. And yes, King James, that's the first thing you've said that I can actually respect. It is the rich against the poor. Who controls everything? The poor or the rich? Think about that. Who controls what's said in the media? Who's up on the podiums in politics, changing all the laws and the rules? Is it the rich or the poor? Who has the most influence in Hollywood? The poor or the rich? So this is it's not every single rich person either. I'm not going to sit there and say if you have a certain amount of dollars that means you're automatically evil. So again, I don't put everybody in that lump sum. But like I said before, a few bad apples can spoil the tree if we let it. So unfortunately, until people start digging deeper and realizing that is the few of the top that control things, because if you want a law passed, you bribe somebody or give them quote unquote donations like the Hillary Clinton Foundation, which no media talks about the fact that they shut it down. Wonder why? Maybe because they were caught in the corruption. Everybody forget about, Hillary Clinton's secret computers that she had, and all the stuff happened to be erased. And the funny part is we want people in the FBI and the CIA and the NSA and all these people to investigate themselves. Please, just imagine if you committed crimes, you got arrested, and the way you can get off is by investigating yourself. You'd be thrilled to do that, wouldn't you? And yet, even people like Trump want the FBI to check into themselves. You think they're going to turn themselves in? I highly doubt it. But the reason they get away with this stuff is we don't do anything about it. And that's why I've been preaching to people for years. Learn about legal definitions, that certain words mean certain things in law that are different from the regular English language that you and I communicate with. And that's why they could say certain things, but they say it in a certain way, and they don't get in trouble. And here's the ironic part. Blue writes, because deeply we want an apocalypse. Here's the funny part about the word apocalypse. See, you've been taught through entertainment that apocalypse means destruction, that it means the end of the world. If you actually look up the word apocalypse, you know what it means? An unveiling. Doesn't sound as scary then, does it? But that's not what agendas want. They don't want you to know about what really things are. They want you to know what they want you to know. So when you go up to anybody and say, "Oh, we're having an apocalypse," what do you think? Destruction. You think of death. You think of the end. Instead of the fact of the true meaning of it is an unveiling. There you go. It's just not as scary then, is it? But you could thank Hollywood for that. And who influences Hollywood? Very wealthy people. It's all about the haves versus the have-nots. And the haves are united. They all work together. But here's the thing. There is no honor amongst thieves. And eventually, when you base things on greed, and you have so much, but you continue to want more, eventually you step on the very toes of the people that have been working with you, and you start corrupting each other. And then people start hurting each other and wanting more and more power and consolidating more and more power until somebody decides enough is enough, and the truth is actually revealed. To me, it's a no-brainer. But if we want to pretend like Hollywood isn't trying to create these agendas with this whole feminine and masculine situation, with the whole black and white, with the whole gay or straight, you don't have to believe in something. You don't always have to agree with everything. You're allowed to not like something, but you're not allowed to stop somebody else from doing it if it's their choice and they're not hurting somebody else. And that's why I've said on numerous occasions, I don't agree with the gay lifestyle. I'm not gay, and I never had any inclination of wanting to be gay. But that doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have the right to do it. If there are two men or two women that feel attracted to each other and they feel that's something they want and it's two consenting adults, then, God bless them. But I don't have to like it, but I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to make them feel bad. It's just something I don't agree with. Just like I don't like to eat broccoli. That doesn't mean I'm going to prohibit somebody else from eating broccoli or insult somebody else because they eat it. It's the same thing. But people are so worried about this social justice warrior snowflake mentality that they're so worried about what everybody else does or what everybody else thinks, they stop and forget about what they should be doing and what they should be thinking. Everybody has the right to do what they want, but they don't have the right to hurt somebody else because they may think in another way that for some reason their thought does not exist or doesn't matter. King James, I'm very glad that apparently, King James, you need the attention. So I'm going to give it to you for whatever reason you need it. So I want to date a woman, not a man. Lee woman. Okay, congratulations. Have fun with that. If you wanted to date a man, it's none of my business. I don't care. The fact that you have to announce it is just silly. Whatever attention you need, I hope we're providing it here for you, because obviously you require it. So congratulations on your achievement. So this is what I talk about. We can continue to go back and forth and everything. We can continue to insult each other, make fun of each other, because that's the easy way out. Just pretending that this stuff doesn't matter. And as we do that, the deficit goes higher, your dollar value goes lower, children are born with more birth defects, your government is teaching your children how to think, because they don't teach you to question things. In school, they don't teach you to question things. They teach you to memorize things, and the one who can regurgitate the most that they were told how to think gets a certificate and a prize. They don't teach you to question things. They say, here is the situation, here are the numbers, here is what this person said, remember it. A computer can do that. Why do you think we're all being replaced by computers and soon to be robots? Because robots don't need to free think, they just need to memorize programs and create them. Well, why do you think they're eventually going to get people to be replaced? Even in places like fast food places, all the people that are going to go around McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and all these fast food places saying, I demand $15 an hour, they're going to say, yeah, that's great. We're going to replace you with automated systems. Have a nice job. Have a nice life trying to find another job. But people don't want to see this stuff. So if you are on any side of a coin, and you don't realize there is another side of that coin, and you're not willing to even think that there's another side of the coin, there is something wrong with you. You're either being paid to do it, or you're not smart enough to see it. Either way is not good. That's dangerous. And that's why I've always questioned Hillary Clinton, and I will continue to question Donald Trump. Because if you think that one person can change a corrupt system, you are either naive, way too hopeful, or you just don't get it. And that's why they will allow this healthcare to continue, because they can easily just eliminate it and go back to find a better system. But they're not doing that. Why? Because they don't have the same healthcare as you do. They don't have to worry about the bills like you do. They're not going to be on food stamps like over 40 million Americans are. So what do they care? Do you think you really care if somebody they don't know starves to death? Because if that was the case, they wouldn't have allowed all these wars to happen and send your brothers and sisters, your children, your parents, to go off and die and kill. That's how caring governments are throughout the world, that they're so willing to send you or your loved ones overseas to fight so they can profit. We seem to be okay with that. So, let's make sure we emasculate the men, or demasculate, I don't know what the correct term, turn them soft. And let's just get the women to keep thinking that they can just go up to a professional bodybuilder and some girl that's 9 years old can beat the living daylights out of them and do backflips. Because not for nothing, if you watch that Netflix show, you see this woman, yes, she knows karate, but she looked like she was maybe 98 pounds, maybe 105 pounds soaking wet. And she goes up against two guys. One of them looked like 3 times her size. And you really think a girl of that size is going to have a punch that could knock a guy out? Come on. Just imagine, and I'm not saying a woman that's trained in karate. I'm talking about size difference and punch value. If you think a woman that is half the size, if not more, of a size difference between a man and goes to punch him in the face, it's going to be the same effect as if a guy turned around and went full force on that girl. would probably have broken her jaw. But they want to teach these things so our children will grow up saying, oh, I can do that, until one day they put themselves in that situation. Because what I'm telling you is, if there are a lot of guys out there, that's why they created this movement, this MGTOW, men going their own way, because they're getting fed up with this one-sided agenda where it's always the feminist side and that's it. So there are so many guys that are creating a movement that says, the hell with them. And eventually there's going to be a guy that snaps and is going to say, you want equal rights? We're going to give it to you. And how is that going to help? My point is, there are always exceptions to every rule. Of course. If you don't think that, that's naive. I'm sure there are plenty of professional women boxers and people that are in karate that could beat the living crap out of me and you. This shouldn't be about that. It's about realism. I would love to see a guy put on a 50 to 60 pound proton pack and be able to do backflips in the air with it, land on their feet, and continue to shoot like there's no tomorrow. It just sends wrong messages. And you think it's just a movie, then you better hope your children aren't watching them. Because we as adults can rationalize. When you're a child, you are easily influenced. So all I'm saying is be careful of this, what should be obvious agenda. And there are plenty of people starting to call it out. Because the one thing I loved about this article that originally started the purpose of this video is that they were saying about how the girl should have been Iron Fist in the TV show, is every comment I saw, there were about 26 comments posted at the time I saw this article. And again, I'm not even going to post the link because I don't want people going to that ridiculous article. But all 26 comments were calling them out for the social justice warriors that they are. So it's good to know that there are people that are starting to pay attention. But they're creating an emotional response. They're getting people to want to fight. And that is never a good thing if you want a better world. So if you think the government's doing a great job, that's good. Then we should have healthier people. We should have less people needing the welfare program. There should be less diseases, less birth defects. I mean, how many decades have we had with all these flu shots and all these different immunity shots that we're supposed to get? And yet, what disease has been cured? They've been doing research about cancer for how many decades, and how much closer are they to a cure? I mean, they'll sell you cigarettes, no problem. They'll sell you alcohol, no problem. But you can't have a thing called marijuana, which is naturally grown in the plant on the ground. But you can't have that. But you can have a beer, and we'll even make wonderful commercials of half-naked women and half-naked guys all dancing around and partying to make it look cool. But meanwhile, there are thousands upon thousands of people that die every day because of it. And how many people are abused by alcoholics? I lived with one, so I know what it's like. But that's okay. As long as you party and have a good time, I guess it's okay. Look the other way until one day what you chose not to look at hits you. And that's where most people finally react. They look the other way until it finally affects them, and then they have no choice. But that's usually when it's too late. So the idea is to wake up before that and see the bigger picture. So I don't have a problem with feminists. But I do have a problem with any feminist that cannot see the other side of it and not see it from another perspective. Because then you're not helping anybody. And that is never going to be a good thing to help us become better people. So I want to create a dialogue. It doesn't mean I have to be right all the time, and it doesn't mean you're wrong all the time. It means we can educate ourselves through intellectual conversation. And if people cannot do that, well, the only people we're hurting are each other. It's disappointing that not many people get that these days. So I'm going to leave that at this. If you want to continue having a civilized dialogue, please do. Leave your comments after this uploads. If you want to hit the thumbs up, that's perfectly fine. If you want to subscribe, that's even better. But start thinking for yourself. Start to question things. Start seeing things from other people's perspectives, not just your own. Stop categorizing everybody. It's just not going to help us. Get out of debt. Get out of banks. Get a credit union account. It's different than a bank. And don't believe that your FDI insured bank account is going to save you. You'll find that out the hard way. Get yourself some physical gold and silver, which, by the way, is starting to rise a little bit. How long it stays that way depends on what they decide to hammer it down by putting millions of paper contracts in 2 seconds out on the market. But they can't do it forever. But definitely stop being afraid to question things and see things from all sides. And realize that there's a reason for all this stuff. And if you're here for the right reasons, you know it. And the ones that are here for the wrong reasons, it doesn't matter what I say, because they already have their thought process. And if they're not willing to change, the only person they hurt in the long run is themselves. So that's up to them. So thanks for listening. Have a great night. And remember, don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered.